Hello and welcome to the dungeon. I'm your host Rob, and in today's video we're going to be talking about the Battlemaster fighter. Now, Battlemaster is probably the most popular of the fighter archetypes, and there's a lot of good reasons for it. However, it's not without its flaws, and I'll be addressing some of those towards the end of the video. I also made a previous video discussing the champion, and I discussed Battlemaster a bit in that one as well, and we're going to kind of revisit that comparison a bit later, but I'll put a link to the champion video in the description or in the comment section in case somebody wants to check that one out as well. So we'll cover the non-maneuvers ability type stuff first, because maneuvers is going to be the bulk of this video, obviously. At level 3 you're going to get Student of War. Oh, I won't bother going through the base class abilities. I assume probably that, you already know you're going to get heavy armor and any weapon you want. You're going to have action surge and lots of attacks and whatnot. So we'll look at the Battlemaster specific abilities. At level 3 you're going to get Student of War. It gives you proficiency with the tool. I don't necessarily think this ability is great, but I really like it as a roleplay thematic thing, because it's not something from your background. It's something you've picked up after becoming an adventurer. And I kind of like that idea. I like the idea of like the soldier or the hardened fighter who maybe picks up blacksmithing tools along the way. You weren't a blacksmith in your previous life, but after being around combat a lot and you've had to repair your weapons and armor a bunch, you've picked it up and you've become pretty good at it over time. And I kind of like that idea for a character. I think that it adds some nice flavor. But I don't necessarily think that it's very powerful necessarily, but that's okay. It's not always about that. At level 7, you're going to get Know Your Enemy. I have mixed feelings about this because I really want to like the ability. I just don't think it's very good, to be honest. It takes a 1 minute uninterrupted time to study your opponent, and then you get to learn one piece of information. And some of that information is not very specific or useful. Like, I could learn that he has more hit points than me, but I don't know if he has 500 hit points more than me or 5 hit points more than me. And that's kind of a big range that I might have wanted to know. Also, a lot of times, let's say you have your big evil guy and he starts monologuing, and you're like, hey, you let the Dungeon Master know, I'm going to start using my Student of War ability, or Know Your Enemy ability on him, because I want to know like whatever specific thing while he's monologuing. That's fine, but odds are he's already more powerful than you, and you probably know it. Otherwise, he wouldn't be the big bad guy set to challenge your entire party. If you could just solo him, you wouldn't really need to know about it. So, I like the idea of the ability, I just don't think that it's very good. The 1 minute casting time and the fact that some of the information just isn't very good and it's not very specific, it's okay, but it's not great. At level 10, you're going to get your improved combat superiority die. It's going to go from a D8 to a D10, and at 18 it's going to go to a D12. We'll talk about that more under the maneuvers, of course. At level 15, you get Relentless, and this one I have mixed feelings about. I think it's pretty decent. Basically, it makes it so that if you begin the combat and you don't have a combat superiority dice, you automatically get one. However, I think that it also is kind of bad because it sort of encourages people to just spam out abilities instead of using them strategically. And I should probably point out that I've actually played all 3 of the different fighter archetypes from the Player's Handbook at this point. Although the champion is the only one I played to 20. The other ones were in campaigns that ended, I think, one at 9 and one at 11. And my one character was multi-class as well, so, it wasn't purely as a Battlemaster. But I have played all the different fighters, at least somewhat, so I feel like I've had a decent chance to like kind of look at them and compare them and see where they're strong and where they're weak. And I do find that one of the problems with the champion is you can't control when you're going to get a critical hit. I mean, sure, you get the expanded crit range, but it's still up to the random roll of dice. You can crit 3 times in one night, you can go 3 nights in a row without getting a crit. The nice thing about the Battlemaster is you can choose when you want to use your special abilities. And so I find that Relentless kind of encourages people to just blow them all on the mindset that like, well, it doesn't matter because if the fight starts and I don't have one, I'm going to get one back. So I kind of feel like it takes away some of that strategic value, but that could just be my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong, and maybe, you know, I'm sure there's somebody out there who's crunched numbers and said, well, if you have X number of encounters a day, you're going to do X amount of damage, and that's all that really matters. You know, whatever. That's just my opinion, though. So like I said, it's not that I don't think the ability is good, I just don't think that it's great, and I feel like it causes people to play poorly. So that's going to be it for that. Those are your basic class abilities, and then of course you also have your maneuvers. Now we already talked about superiority die a little, but basically when you hit level 3 and you choose the Battlemaster archetype, you're going to get 4 superiority dice that recharge on a short or long rest. They're all going to be D8s originally, and you're going to have your choice of 3 different maneuvers. And because of the fact that fighters have so many feats in general, and Battlemasters have so many different maneuvers available, I really feel that Battlemasters have a chance to have a very specific feel and a very customizable aspect to them that a lot of the others don't. In fact, I find that a lot of people think fighters are just boring and generic to begin with, but I actually really like fighters. I think that a champion and a Battlemaster and an Elder's Knight all feel quite a bit different from each other in actual play. Or at least the way I like to play them. I constantly try to find ways to, you know, do things to differentiate between them as well, right? I take spells on an Elder's Knight that aren't necessarily combat or aren't, you know, damage related, because I'm going to be attacking anyways. But I might take like Blur or Mirror Image, for example, to help make me even more tanky. You know, obviously you're going to take Shield because, you know, you're an Elder's Knight. Whereas with the Battlemaster, if I'm trying to be more of a support character or more tanky, or maybe I'm just trying to do as much damage as possible, those can all be done with different maneuvers that can help with feats to really customize the character and make you very strong in whatever you've chosen to do. So we'll just go through the list here. We've got Commander Strike. This one is very high cost, but can potentially be very high reward. It takes one of your attacks, so if you have only one attack, then that's it. But if you have 3 or 4 attacks, then you're only losing one of them. But you're also using your bonus action, and whoever you want to use the Commander Strike, your ally, has to use their reaction. So this is why I say it's a pretty high cost. A lot of things might take a bonus action or a reaction, but they're not usually using an attack and a bonus action and someone else's reaction. And what do they get to do for this? They get to make an attack. Now, obviously that's not a very good trade-off if you're giving up one attack and a bonus action, and he's just getting one attack at the cost of his reaction, no less. However, where it really shines is people who hit very, very, very hard. Obviously, the prototypical example is going to be the Rogue, because he can sneak attack. If you look at sneak attack, he can only make a sneak attack once per turn, but that's on his turn. If it's on your turn and you're giving him the option of making another attack at the cost of his reaction, he can sneak attack with that attack. And obviously the Rogue is going to hit very hard with their sneak attack, so that makes this a very, very good ability in combination with the Rogue. The only thing I'm going to warn you about is that you're probably never going to be able to use any bonus actions for anything except for this. So bear that in mind. I think there's potential as well with, say, like a Barbarian who's using Great Weapon Mastery and they just hit really hard and they're using a Reckless attack to help them land those attacks. He might do significantly more than you per hit, especially if you're like more of a sword and shield type, you're trying to tank and the Barbarian is just there to do damage. I think there's potential there as well. I mean, maybe even a Paladin if they're going to drop Smite, but now that's another cost going onto the same attack. So, you know, be wary of that. It's also worth remembering that you only have so many superiority dice, so it's not like you're going to be able to do this constantly every fight, but you have enough that you could, you know, at least make good use of it if you're taking a lot of short rests. Disarming Strike. I want to like this one. I think it's not very good. And the reason is because a lot of stuff you fight don't use weapons. Monsters and a lot of creatures are using natural weapons like claws and teeth, and you can't disarm them. Like, I guess you could if they're dead and you knocked out all their teeth or whatever, but, you know, with your blacksmith hammer, the are proficient with now, thanks to Student of War. But overall, I just don't think it's very good. Even if you do disarm somebody, they can just pick it up again unless you use, like, you know, something. I guess you can try to kick the weapon away or something, try to force them to use opportunity attack. I'm not saying there's not circumstances where it couldn't be useful. I just think that overall, there's better things you could be doing with your maneuvers than trying to disarm somebody. And it's not even guaranteed that it'll work, so, you know, I don't think it's great. Distracting attack. Basically, you give an ally advantage on their attack. This is one that sounds good in theory, but I just don't think it's great either. Usually, if I want somebody to have advantage on the attack, it's so they can land a really big hit. But I could just use Commander Strike for that, if it was like the Barbarian or the Paladin or the Rogue, like we talked about in that example. And it's just going to do a way better job of that, I find, in general at least, than this. So it's not like it's terrible, but I think there's better choices to do the same thing. Evasive footwork, you're going to get to add your superiority die to your armor class for the round. It's really good if you're trying to tank something that's, you know, kicking your butt. It's also good if you're going to play like a maneuverable skirmishing type character, and maybe you want to get past a bunch of guards in order to get to the big bad guy, and you're like, oh, I'm going to have to eat a lot of opportunity attacks this round. Better give myself some extra armor class. And then it can be very, very good. And because it's one that I think helps to boost you defensively, it's one that I would definitely consider. A lot of time you're going to be using your superiority dice for things to add offense to the party, not necessarily to you, but to add offense to the group. And I like the idea of having a defensive ability or two that I can use too when the need arises. So evasive footwork, I think, is pretty good. Feigning attack. It's going to use one of your superiority dice and your bonus action to give you advantage on another attack. I think there's probably better ways to get advantage. Let's say trip attack. But B, fighters tend to do their damage through the number of attacks they're getting. They're not like, you know, adding sneak attack damage. They're not getting a bunch of rage bonus damage and stuff like that. You're not getting smite damage on top of your regular hits, you know, or Colossus Slayer, or any of these things that the other classes are getting, like, you know, Hunter's Mark, Hex, whatever. They're all boosting their damage through other means. The fighter's just basically boosting his damage through making lots of attacks. And maybe you get the extra crits with the champion, or you do some extra damage with a maneuver, like the Battlemaster. But for the most part, it's just volume of attacks is how you're doing most of your damage. And so unless you have something specific where you just really need advantage on this next attack, I don't know that it's necessarily a good ability. I'm sure there's circumstances I'm just not thinking of, but in general, I think you could probably do the same thing with other abilities better. Goading attack, I like this one quite a bit. The creature's going to get a wisdom saving throw to avoid, otherwise it has to attack you, and it doesn't have to attack you actually. It just gets disadvantage to attack targets other than you. We'll talk about menacing attack more, which is basically the exact opposite. But I think this one's pretty good if you wanted to be like that damage sponge type guy who's just trying to protect the party. Now you can try to force something into attacking you, or also has disadvantage to attack anyone else. I think it's pretty good. It's kind of like the idea of a taunt in a lot of video games, except, like I said, it's not really a taunt. It just makes it harder to hit something else. But still pretty decent, I think. Lunging attack adds an extra 5 feet of movement to the attack, and then you get superiority dice added to the damage. I don't really like this one. It's not terrible. It's definitely better than some of them. But in most combats, you know, in the first round is when you're really looking for that extra 5 feet of movement, and after that, it's not really going to be very useful. I do think there's potential there for, you know, maybe like a whole arm style build where you're going to try to keep guys at range, and then you've got the extra 5 feet in the first round. I mean, you could maybe do something with that and Sentinel, a bunch of stuff like that. But I think it's going to take a lot of other things to support it and make it work. And in general, as far as like abilities that really are just boosting your damage, I think there's better ones as well. Maneuvering attack is pretty good. You can give an ally up to half their regular movement and without provoking opportunity attacks. It's really, really good if you're using like battle mats and boards and stuff like that, and then everything's carefully laid out precisely where it is on the board, and you want to be able to help your teammates move to more advantageous positions. But if you're doing like theater of the mind and nobody's really exactly sure where everything precisely is, then it's probably fairly useful, or useless, sorry. But that's okay. I mean, it means that in the situations where you want it, you're probably going to know you want it, and it's going to really shine. In the ones where you don't want it, you don't need it at all, and then you can just avoid it, and that's good. So you either want it or you don't, and there's not really a lot of middle ground in that one. Menacing attack, I mentioned this one before, but the creature is going to get a wisdom saving throw to avoid, or else it's going to be frightened of you, which means it's going to have disadvantage to attack you, and it can't willingly come closer to you. It can still attack your allies, though, but, you know, I mean, maybe in combination with goading attack, it'll just have disadvantage on everything. But personally, I think there's probably better ways to give something disadvantage. But, I mean, against everything. But I like menacing attack if you're going to be like a tank guy and you just want everything focusing on you, and then you want to just be as hard to hit as possible and as tough and resilient as possible. Then giving something disadvantage to attack you is pretty good. Wisdom saving throws, or, you know, a lot of like beasts and creatures have poor wisdom saves. A lot of casters have good wisdom saves, but then you're not going to be using something like menacing attack probably anyways. So again, it's one of those abilities where when it's not very good, it's basically useless, in which case you don't have to feel like you need to use it. But when it is useful, it's very useful. So it's one I really like. I think I might actually prefer it over goading attack as well, because hopefully I just have things focused on me as a tank anyways. They shouldn't be attacking all my allies, right? So if they're just going to be focused on me, then I just want to be as hard to hit as possible, in which case I like menacing attack quite a bit. Parry uses your reaction. You reduce damage from a hit by the roll of your superiority dice. Parry is one that really shines at low levels when you're looking at, like, maybe only getting hit for 6 or 8 damage. And reducing that damage by 5 or 6 points is a huge difference in the amount of incoming damage. Parry does not scale very well, though, until later levels, because you're still just reducing it by that superiority die. So even if you're using a D10 or a D12 by then, it's not a very big upgrade, but you could be getting hit for 40 damage on one hit. And reducing that by, I mean, the average on a D12 is still only like a 6.5. So let's say 7 damage, right? Reducing a hit for 7 by, say, 5 is a big deal. Reducing a hit for 40 by 7, not so much. And it's using one of your superiority dice. You probably just don't want to get hit at all at that point if you can avoid it. And so, like I say, parry's one that I might look to take at level 3, but I'm definitely going to be trading it out. Like, probably at level 10, there's no way I'd have it past level 15 for sure. It's just not very good by then. But it does have its moments, especially in the early game, where it's quite good. Precision attack. This is really nice with things like, say, Great Weapon Mastery. As we all know, Great Weapon Mastery is one of the best ways to boost your damage if you're a melee character. The problem with Great Weapon Mastery, of course, is that alongside that beautiful plus 10 to your damage per hit, you're also looking at the -5 hit penalty. And so a lot of using Great Weapon Master properly is trying to find ways to get around or to compensate for that -5 penalty. Barbarians can do that with things like giving themselves advantage at will, pretty much with a reckless attack. Battlemasters can do that with precision attack. The problem is with precision attack is that you only have so many superiority dice. So unlike that barbarian who can just attack recklessly all the time, you can only do that so often. You are going to need to be short resting a lot if you just constantly want to attack with this. But I do think that it's pretty good. It's also good even without things like Great Weapon Mastery. If you're fighting the big boss and you just, you just really need to make sure I've got to get in this hit because this combat is looking really dicey right now, then it's quite good. Overall, I think precision attack is definitely worth picking up. Just be careful about spamming it out constantly when you don't necessarily need it. Because don't forget, it's not turning misses into hits. You have, well, I mean it could, but there's still a chance you could miss. If you miss by like 5 and then you use your superiority die and you roll like a 1 or a 2, then now you're down to superiority dice and you still missed. But there is potential there, and I think that overall it's definitely one that I would look to take. It's circumstantial, but when you want to use it, it's very, very good. Pushing attack, creature gets a strength saving throw or else it gets pushed back 15 feet. That's a sizable push, so I kind of like pushing attack. Notice though that they're not necessarily rendered prone. It doesn't say anything about them being prone in the book. They just get pushed back 15 feet. Obviously it's going to be good if you're fighting by cliffs and bridges and stuff like that, but it's also pretty good if you have a lot of ranged people in your party and you can just push somebody who's attacking them back 15 feet so that your teammate doesn't have to eat a bunch of opportunity attacks in order to get away. I think that it's pretty good. It's another one that is not always very useful. You're not going to use it a lot, but when you want it, it really, really, really shines. There's nothing like pushing something off a cliff and watching it plunge to its death for the cost of 1 superiority dice. Well worth it. You've also got Rally. This is another one that I'm definitely looking towards on like a support build. You can give temporary hit points to one of your allies. It does use your bonus action to do. That's one thing I'm going to caution people about with Battlemasters as well. A lot of stuff uses your bonus action. And if you end up with like 5 or 6 maneuvers all using a bonus action to use, you've got a lot of maneuvers you're just never going to use. Or you're going to only use them once or twice ever. Because you've only got the 1 bonus action per round. You've only got limited superiority dice. You're probably going to just have the same 1 or 2 maneuvers that you use 90% of the time, and the rest basically go unused. However, I do think that it's worth taking a look at having couple things that use your bonus action, maybe something you use as a reaction, and just try to really maximize that action economy on your character. So there's nothing wrong with having 1 or 2 abilities, or maybe even 3 at the outset, I mean at the most, that are going to use bonus action. But if you have a lot, then some of them just are never going to do anything. I think this one's really nice on a support build as well. I mean, anytime you've had a lot of combat, you're always going to have circumstances where somebody's getting low on hit points. And you can use your bonus action, give them some temporary hit points equal to the roll of your superiority die, and that could be the difference between them going down or staying up in the combat and not having to, look, maybe it's the paladin, he's in the front lines with you, and he got crit twice in the same round. And now he's down to like 3 hit points, and maybe he already acted this round, or maybe he acts really late, and you don't know if he's going to have a chance to use lay on hands on himself. Those temporary hit points could be the difference between him staying up in the fight or him going down. So it's one that shines at low levels, it shines at high levels. It's pretty much good throughout your career. Obviously though, the temporary hit points, just as a percentage of your hit points, a D8 is way more impactful when you're levels 1, 2, 3, 4 than a D12 is when you're, level 20, obviously. But it's still one that's still pretty useful under most circumstances. Just be aware though that temporary hit points don't stack. So if you're trying to use it on the, the Warlock, Blade Lock who's besides you and he has Armor of Agathis, you're just going to waste your superiority dice and he's going to get angry at you for trying to screw with his Armor of Agathis. So, just be aware of that kind of stuff. Riposte, if somebody attacks you and misses, you can use your reaction to attack back, and then you add the superiority dice to the damage. I really like Riposte a lot, because if you're a frontline fighter type, I mean, assuming you're not, using a bow, but if you're in the front lines, you're going to be getting attacked a lot. You're probably going to have high armor class because you're a fighter, and things are going to be missing you. And this just gives you a chance to really put out some damage using your reaction. And the combination of something like this with, say, Sentinel, means that if somebody attacks your ally next to you, you can attack back with Sentinel. But if they attack you and miss, you can attack back with Riposte. Either way, it means you can get a reaction attack, and you're really using a lot of that action economy and trying to maximize your opportunities to get in damage. If you're more of a tanky type, I don't know that I'd necessarily use this, but if you're more about just trying to do a lot of damage on your character, then it's very nice because it gives you an extra opportunity to get an attack when you wouldn't have had an attack in normally. Sorry, lost my place in my notes here. Oh, sweeping attack. I really like sweeping attack at low levels. It becomes basically useless at mid and high levels. But again, it's one that you could take at level 3 and then swap out later. Basically, if you have a target within 5 feet of your target, you can hit them as well using your superiority dice to do the damage to them. I think it's pretty decent even around level 5 or 6 even still when you start to get a lot of AoEs, because a lot of times your wizard might throw out a fireball, but maybe a bunch of stuff makes the saving throw and they live. And now they're all down low on health. It means that if you have a couple attacks around, we'll assume, because you're level 5 and the wizard has fireball, so we'll assume you're 5 as well. It means you can attack one guy, sweeping strike another guy, finish both of them off, use your second attack, finish another guy off, and now you're just like the cleanup man, just taking out the trash, you know? Just boom, boom, boom. So I think there's a lot of potential there, kind of like a cleave ability. But again, when you're fighting stuff that has 100 or 200 or 300 hit points or more, an extra D10 or D12 damage at high level is basically worthless. So, you know, it's one that I would definitely not keep for the long haul, but I think it's very good at low levels. Lastly, we have Trip Attack. Trip Attack will actually try to render something prone, so unlike Push Attack, where it just knocks them back, Trip Attack, you just knock them down. But when they're prone, all your melee allies and yourself will have advantage against them. Just be aware, though, that your ranged allies will have disadvantage to hit. So, you know, if you aren't looking at the initiative order and you knock a guy prone, and then the next people after you are your Blast Lock, the Wizard, and the Ranger, you could have some pretty upset allies, because now all of them are going to be looking at disadvantage to try to hit this thing. I do find it's really good, though, on damage builds. In fact, I kind of prefer it over Precision Attack a lot of times, because unlike Precision Attack, where I'm going to need it on like every attack, I can try one Trip Attack. If it fails its strength save, it's going to be knocked prone, and now I'll have advantage on all my later attacks. And one thing about the fighter is, you're not getting like the bonus damage of like smites or, you know, rage bonus damages. You're not getting like things like Life Drinker, like a Blade Lock's going to get. I mean, sure, you're going to have a few maneuvers, you're going to get maybe extra critical hits from a champion, but for the most part, a fighter is making up his damage to just the sheer volume of attacks. I mean, you're getting 3 and eventually 4 attacks when everybody else has 2 as a base. And you could say, like, oh, they could do a wheel, but so could your fighter. So it's pretty moot at that point. The thing is, you're not hitting as hard on each attack as a lot of your allies, but you're getting more attacks, and that's where the fighter's really making up their damage. So if you can knock this guy prone, and then just give yourself advantage on a bunch of attacks, it really starts to pay off, especially with things like Great Weapon Mastery, where now you've just basically given yourself advantage, and you can, you know, just make maybe 3 more attacks at level 20, all in addition to that, just beating on this guy and taking big advantage of the fact that he's prone. So that covers the maneuvers. I want to talk about some specific build ideas, and then we'll wrap things up with just a discussion about Battlemasters and champions and whatnot, just in general. First of the build ideas is going to be the idea of the support build, and I've kind of alluded to this a couple times already, but I'm looking to take things like, say, Goading Attack. I'm looking to take Rally so I can give temporary hit points to my allies. I might want something like, say, Fainting Attack, although I prefer Commander Strike. Commander Strike is really going to be one of the best ones I could take if I'm combined with, like, say, a Rogue. But even, like I said, a hard-hitting Barbarian or someone like that can be worthwhile. But Rogues especially is where this ability is going to shine. I like the idea of maneuvering attack on this character if I'm using a battle mat, allowing other allies to move into advantageous positions. If you're using like flanking rules and stuff like that as well, it can be really, really good. So there's a lot of potential there. It can also be used to help allies get out of melee combat. If your ranger has 2 guys on him and he's suddenly getting hit, and you can use this to help him get out, not take opportunity attacks. He can move back, and now he's still, able to fire his bow. He's not going to be looking at disadvantage or anything like that. I think Pushing Attack is pretty good with this as well. And then, like I said, you can combine it with feats like Sentinel or whatnot to be pretty good. The next one is going to be just basically just being a straight up tank build. Things like menacing attack is going to be really good for that. I think that parry, especially at low levels, like I mentioned, is going to be really good, just reducing that incoming damage against yourself. And I like evasive footwork, so I can give myself that armor class boost for when I need it. If I need to eat some opportunity attacks, I can boost my armor class, and hopefully I don't get hit. Maybe I just got hit really hard last round, and now I'm getting kind of low on hit points, and I'm just like, you know what, I need to give myself that armor class boost, weather the storm, hopefully not get hit, or maybe only get hit once, and give the cleric or the druid or whoever's healing me a chance to try to, you know, keep me up so I don't go down in this fight, or maybe the paladin is going to lay hands, whatever, and, you know, just try to use as much of my own sustain as I can, so I'm not, you know, leeching it from the party. The next one is going to be basically just the damage dealer, right? It's going to be like your Great Weapon Master. You're going to be taking things like precision attack. You're going to be taking trip attack. You're going to be taking things like riposte. The idea is that you want to basically just try to get in as much damage as you can. You want things that are going to allow you to attack on reactions and bonus actions. Basically, just the more attacks you can get in, and the more often you can give yourself advantage, the more damage you can be able to do. You're obviously going to be using a great weapon or a polearm, probably even better, because then you've got access to a bonus action attack whenever you need it with the butt end of your polearm, and you're just going to be looking to do a lot of damage. I actually think Sentinel is good for here too. I know Sentinel is more of a tanking feat, but it still gives you the option of using a reaction attack if they attack someone who's not you. And if you're looking to maximize your damage, then just, like I said, getting in as many attacks as possible is kind of the key to that. And a lot of those attacks are going to come from things that aren't even on your turn now. You're going to be using a reaction to try to do that, and it's going to be pretty solid. Now, I want to discuss a little bit about multi-classing with champion fighters as well. And champion fighter is one that I find you're never going to really want to be mostly champion and a bit of something else. Champion is the class that you dipped into for 3 levels just to augment something. Like let's say you took a blade lock. The problem with the blade lock is until you get to level 12 and get life drinker, you basically just have 2 generic attacks around. And sure, you have a few spells like that you could use to boost your damage, like Hex, but you could be boosting Hex damage with just Eldritch Blast as well, and it would actually be mathematically a better choice. So someone like a blade lock, if you're like, you know what, I'm going to start with first level fighter, giving myself the option shield if I want. I'm also going to have a bonus action heal I want. And then I'm going to go, say, with the Warlock for 5 levels, get my second attack. I'm going to be 1 level behind, but that's not so bad. I'm also going to have proficiency on Constitution saving throws if I start fighter. And that's kind of a big deal if I want to be maintaining concentration on, say, like Hex or whatever else. And then at that point, you say, I've got my 3rd level spells, I've got my second attack around, I'm going to grab a couple more level of fighter. This is going to give me action surge, and it's giving me maneuvers, and now I'm going to be able to add a lot of what the Battlemaster has, and I'm just going to go Warlock the rest of the way. And if the campaign goes all the way to 20, I'm still going to be able to get my 9th level spell, because I'm going to have 17 levels of Warlock, and I think that's going to be much better than, say, 17 or 18 levels of champion, of Battlemaster combined with something else. Because I don't really see much point in trading off that 4th attack around and another feat when, you know, I could have just gone straight Battlemaster or just dipped Battlemaster a little bit. As I mentioned before, Battlemasters are fairly front-end loaded, especially compared to the champion fighter. Champions, as I discussed in the champion video, really start to shine on the back half of your career. 11 plus is when the champion really comes into their own. Now the fact that you can't control when you get a crit is a lot less of a big deal because you're attacking so often that you're getting crits all the time anyways. And unlike, say, a Battlemaster where you have limited maneuvers, I've had combats where my champion fighter crit 3 times in 1 round sometimes. So, I mean, it can happen, especially at higher levels. When you're attacking 4 times a round, you're critting on an 18, 19, or 20 at that point, the champion really starts to shine. I find the Battlemaster starts to hit diminishing returns though. I said in the champion video that the champion was like the marathon runner and the Battlemaster is like the sprinter. And I think that is very true. You hit level 3 on your Battlemaster, you've got your 4 superiority dice that are D8s, you've got your 3 maneuvers. At level 7 you're getting 2 more maneuvers, Now you're up to 5 maneuvers. You've got 4 superiority dice recharging on a short or a long rest. That's a lot of abilities and it's a lot of power, and you can be strategic about when you want to use it and really make the most of your character. The problem I find is though that going from a D8 to a D10 and eventually a D12 isn't as big an upgrade as a lot of people seem to think. The average roll on a D8 is a 4.5, a D10 is a 5.5, your D12 is a 6.5. So let's say you're using this on something that adds to your damage, for example, right? Let's say a lunging attack or something. It means that at level 3, that lunging attack is doing an extra 4.5 damage. At level 20, that lunging attack is doing an extra 6.5 damage. You've seen a 2-point of damage improvement over the course of your entire career as a Battlemaster. But the stuff you're fighting might have 300 or 400 hit points. 2 extra damage is pretty much meaningless. Now, it might be somewhat circumstantial, but things like precision attack, I think, benefit from this a little more, where an extra couple points to hit on average can be a big deal when you're fighting things with high armor class. But even still, just the math in 5th edition means that as you get to higher and higher level, it actually gets easy to hit a lot of high level stuff because the armor classes just aren't growing as fast as your magical item bonuses, your strength bonuses when you're maxing out that. You're getting proficiency bonuses of like +6 by high level. And I mean, the highest armor class of any creature in the monster manual is the Trask, and it's a 25. Most things are, even hard to hit creatures. You're looking at 21, 22, 23 armor class for the most part. So even though precision attack, I think the +2 is kind of a big deal still over, like, say, from the D8 to the D12. It's still not a huge improvement. Also, when you look at the maneuvers themselves, you start with 3, you get 2 more, and then you get 2 more at 10, 2 more at 5, or at 7, 2 more at 10, and 2 more at 15. The problem is they're all coming from that same pool of maneuvers. So if I have a maneuver that I didn't think was good enough to take at level 3, and it still wasn't good enough to take at level 7, why do I want it at level 15? That just does not seem very good to me at all. And I do admit, like I've already mentioned, there are some that are really good at low levels, and then you can trade them out. So I think, it's not like it's a completely lost cause. But for the most part, what I'm trying to say is that when you get those maneuvers early on in your career, it's a big boost. But getting to choose more of the same isn't a very big boost. And when you're getting to higher and higher level, to get maneuvers that you already passed up at levels 3, 7, and 10, it's just not a great deal in that situation. And so I find that the Battlemaster is one that really shines at low levels, and if you're going to be playing a campaign that goes to like 11 or 12, like say Ghost of Saltmarsh or Tomb of Annihilation or any of those, then the Battlemaster is really going to be a fun and awesome choice. But when you start hitting the higher levels, it's a lot of, just more of the same, and like I said, the upgrades just aren't very good, to be honest. And you're still limited by the number of superiority dice you have. I mean, sure, at level 15, like I said, you can just start spamming superiority dice out all the time, just trying to do more damage, and then getting 1 dice back when you roll initiative if you're out. There's something to that, I guess, but the champions getting upgrades from things like better weapons. If they get weapons that do damage on hit, they're getting bonuses from that. If you have things like elemental weapon in your party, where somebody casts that buff, I'd probably rather put it on the champion than the Battlemaster, because if the champion crits, that elemental weapon damage is also getting doubled. And if you're equal level, he's got just as many attacks as you do, so it just, mathematically, it just makes more sense. It's a better choice. So I do find that the Battlemaster, I'm not trying to rip on the Battlemaster. I know this the last 5 minutes, it probably sounds like I think the Battlemaster sucks. That is not the case. I think that all the fighter archetypes from the Player's Handbook are actually really good and really strong. I think fighter is a fun class, and I think it's one of the better designed classes actually from the Player's Handbook. A lot of the other subclasses, or classes I should say, they have weak subclasses. Like hunters are good, but you know, I'm not saying Beastmasters are awful, but they have a bad reputation, and it's not hard to see why. A lot of that is deserved, you know. Bladelocks really were kind of so-so until you got things like Xanatar's Guide to Everything. And a lot of them are like this, where you have certain archetypes that might be good, and other ones you're just kind of like, eh. And I know the Champion has that reputation from Player's Handbook, but like I said, if you play a Champion all the way to 20, you're going to have a different story from 11 plus. Let me tell you that, because that's exactly how I felt. I was like, you know, they're okay. And then I started getting a Flame Tongue, and I got 3 attacks a round, and I started getting, you know, a second fighting style, and I started critting on an 18, 19, or 20, and all of a sudden you're just like, I am doing a truckload of damage. And you know, it was a much different class on the back half of his career than it was on the front half. And I feel like Battlemaster is kind of the same, but reversed. You really shine at low levels, and it's not like you're bad at high levels. You're still fine. There's nothing, you know, there's nothing wrong with Battlemaster from 11 plus, right? It's still a decent choice. I'm just saying that there's a lot more diminishing returns, and you're choosing stuff that you've already bypassed many times over. So those are my thoughts on Battlemasters. I think Battlemasters are awesome. I think they're fun. I love the amount of customization you can do with them. And more than any other fighter, except for maybe the Eldritch Knight because of spells, you can really kind of like choose a niche and really specialize around that and just be awesome at it while still being good at everything else. Just because you specialize for damage doesn't mean that you're still not pretty hard to hit and that you can't still be really tanky, because you can. You know, and if you chose to be tanky and not focus on damage, just the fact that you're getting 3rd or even a 4th attack around at high level means you're still going to be doing a lot of damage. Sure, you might not be optimized for it, but you're still going to be able to dish it out when it counts. And you've got Action Surge to dish it out all over again. So those are my thoughts on the Battlemaster. Feel free to like and hit, you know, the subscribe button and the bell for notifications. I don't know if any of this stuff does anything anymore on YouTube. Half the time it doesn't seem to, but whatever. Feel free to hit them anyways. But more than anything, I'd love to hear your thoughts. So leave comments down in the comment section. As always, I promise to read every single comment. And because my channel is small enough right now, I also promise to respond to all your comments. It might take me, you know, a week to get back to you if I'm not like right on top of it. Thanks, Wild Classic. But I promise that I will read them and I will get back. Okay? Thank you very much, and I'll see you next time. Bye.